Welcome in. It is Monday. It is the 15th day of September 2025. This is section 1904, and it's Monday. That means it's free. That means we're doing this live. We're doing it live. We're going to do it live for those on YouTube and on Twitter. So thanks for being with us. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Section 1904 is a local San Diego independent media company. Yours truly, Darren Smith, John Gennaro. John, hope you had a good weekend. How's things?
Things are good. It was a good weekend. I got some time with my brother. We went out to lunch on Saturday. That was good. Had some a little bit of time at the beach, some time on the couch to watch football. If you were ever wondering if I would pick football over the WNBA playoffs, the answer is apparently depressingly yes. But yeah, good weekend overall.
Funny you mentioned the WNBA playoffs. So I mentioned we went and watched, or I had planned on Friday in the Try This segment of Friday podcasts, section 1904. I did mention that I was going to take a bike ride to Novo in Otay Mesa to go watch Barcelona play at 12 noon on Sunday, and I did that. And the game was supposed to be on ESPN2, I think, or one of those ESPN channels. So they put it up on the big screen, but it was the end of a WNBA playoff game. And the end of basketball games take about a good, 3 hours. So we were just sitting there. It's a 20-30 point blowout. We're like, oh my God. And like the game has started and, soccer, relatively speaking, low scoring sport. And we just sat there. We were like suffering through the end of this WNBA game, which was a total beatdown. But got through it. And all's well that ends well, I suppose. Listen, for those that are checking us out are like, hey, what is this? What's happening here? I'm going to click on this link. I don't really know it. I touched on it. It's Monday through Friday. It's a podcast. It's a newsletter. It's a website. There's all sorts of other stuff. Continuing to grow. We appreciate those that have been with us since day number one. Or if this is your day number one, welcome aboard. You can subscribe for as low as $5 a month. It's ad-free, 100% listener supported. So that's what we're all about. Mostly about things that are happening in San Diego. We're going to talk about the Padres San Diego Football Club, a little bit of Wave, other things happening. John, I like bringing this up just out of the gate. We are working with a little bit of a quirky timeline today, so I'm not going to dwell on stuff that I don't think is super important to people who will be checking this podcast out live or what have you. Did you watch the Emmys last night? Did you watch the Emmys on Sunday night?
I watched the last. It's like a 3-hour show. I watched like the last hour of it because there was a point in which my wife and I were like, "Oh, the Emmys are on!" Like someone opened up Blue Sky or something, and people were tweeting about it, and it was like, "Oh, the Emmys are on!" So we put it on. We saw the last hour. We saw the big awards. Why?
Okay. You watched one more hour than I did.
There you go.
I did not watch any of
I was
it.
texting you about it.
You were?
Yeah, I remember I was telling you that the studio was cleaning up. They were winning all the awards.
Yeah, my wife actually said today, she goes, oh, the Emmys were last night. Did you watch it? I was like, nope, was watching the Dallas Cowboy documentary. After feeling disappointed that Justin Jefferson wasn't doing enough for my fantasy team, I went to the Dallas Cowboy documentary and I got through the end of that. Here's what, as somebody who's old enough, not to go all boomer mode on everybody Monday morning, but as somebody who is old enough to remember the world before cable. And I said it purposefully for that reason, because now we live in a world that is sort of post-cable and into streaming. I do like looking at this the day after the Emmy Awards. Personally speaking, I don't really care who wins any of these awards. I'm not emotionally invested in what television shows do what. We could go over the list if you want. I'm just happy that I've seen a lot of these shows, because there was a stretch of time there where I hadn't seen any of the shows. But here is the breakdown, the Primetime Emmys by network. Are you ready for it? HBO Max 9, Netflix 6, Apple TV Plus 7, NBC Peacock 2, Disney, ABC, Hulu 1, Paramount, CBS 1. Like that's the whole list. Like are there television shows anymore on broadcast television? Like I honestly don't know the answer to that. If you were to say, and I guess this comes sometimes, even my football viewing is mostly through the lens of Red Zone these days, so they're not going to tell me what's coming up this week on CBS or whatever. Like none of any of those shows exist anymore? Are there any shows on television? These are primetime. Again, I'm old enough to remember a world where a lot of the shows that would get nominated and win some of these were shows that were on CBS on Thursday night or NBC, must-see TV at 9 o'clock. And like none of those things seemingly exist anymore, do they?
It's funny you mentioned that. So, not to give you a full play by play of the full hour I watch of the Emmys, but the last two awards are best comedy series and best drama series, right? And usually the presenter for the last awards is like a big deal with this audience as it pertains to this award. So they had Ray Romano and Brad Gilbert from Everybody Loves Raymond give the award for best comedy series, and I was sitting there laughing. First of all, they were very funny. But I was laughing going like, Everybody Loves Raymond would never win an award in 2025. Like there's
Right.
just no chance. The type of show, and it was on network TV. Like it just, and then they were like, here are the nominees, and it was like, yeah, here's a show on Netflix, here's a show on Apple TV, here's a show on Peacock, here and whatever. And then they you know who presented the award for the final award of the night, best drama series. They made this big deal. They built a set for this, Darren. They had like the five most famous people from Law and Order ever. They had Marissa Hargitay or whatever from Law and Order SVU. They had Ice T. They had the bald guy who's very intense. All the Law and Order people sitting on like in what looked like a police station, and then they all came together, talked about how important Law and Order was for some reason, which I don't think Law and Order ever won this award. And if it did, good lord, the times have changed. And then they presented the award, and I was like, Law and Order, another network show that would never win this award ever in 2025. There's no chance. And it was this really strange disconnect between the people putting on the show, like the production company putting on the show, which I assume is CBS because it was on Paramount Plus, and the shows that were winning the awards. It seemed like kind of out of touch and
Mm.
strange. But yes, I did notice that all of the good TV now is on the streamers. I also noticed that this will be funny to you as a person who's watched the studio. I saw Seth Rogen get up to accept the award for best comedy series, which the studio won. And he thanked Apple TV. He thanked Tim Cook. Like he was thanking all the like high level executives. I think even at the end of it, he was like, "Thank your executives." And it's just funny because like they had a whole episode where he's the
Mhm.
executive going like, "Are they going to thank me? Are they going to thank me? That's my whole career if they thank me." But yeah, it was strange. There was definitely a disconnect there.
Yeah, and by the way, a huge whiff from Seth Rogen. Not to
Massive.
thank Sal Saperstein. What is going on here? I was shocked to hear that at least nobody seemingly has suggested that he did. If I missed
No,
it, I
no, he
missed it.
he didn't. I saw one person who was like, I don't know if this is planned or not, but they're gonna have to make the Golden Globes like a big Sal Saperstein thing, which is funny because that episode was
Oh
at
yeah,
the Golden Globes. So like
right.
maybe they saved it for that.
Okay,
Either way, there was enough people
good
like you and
shout.
me that were like, why the hell aren't they mentioning it? That now they're gonna have to go like doubly hard at the Globes.
Okay, yeah, that's a good shout right there. So I hadn't really thought about that. As far as I knew, the Golden Globes had already happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I said, I usually am just happy if I've seen a handful of these shows or if I've heard of a handful of these shows. Andor, The Diplomat, I've seen both of those. These are just drama series. Andor, The Diplomat, seen them both. Severance, seen it. Slow Horses, seen it. Tried to get into White Lotus, couldn't. The Pit, the one that showed, I haven't seen that. Have you seen The Pit?
Yes, actually, I was telling everyone, I don't know, 9 months ago when it was live, I was telling everyone I knew, like, "Go watch The Pit. This is one of the best TV shows I have
Okay.
ever seen." But it's not for the light at heart. It's an ER show, and so it's intense. People die. There's a lot of heavy emotions and episodes, but great show, fantastic show, and like you, my wife watches this rooting for the shows she has seen,
Mm.
and any show she hasn't seen, she's like, "Yeah, I hope that one loses." And so she was thrilled that The Pit took home best drama series and that Noah Wiley took home best actor in a drama series. She was over the moon.
Okay. Well, again, I think some of these shows, these award shows, serve to put shows and movies on the map for a lot of other people as well, right? Like one of my favorite movies of all time is called The King's Speech. I don't think I ever heard of that until it cleaned up, winning all the Academy Awards. And I was like,
Same.
well, I got to see this King's Speech now. It almost should have won the award the second year because so many people tuned into it after watching it win all these awards. Comedy series, it went to the studio, as you
Yep.
mentioned. You and I have talked a little bit about that on the podcast. I'm a huge fan of Hacks. I mean, just not that I care. Like I said, I mean, Hacks is one of my favorite shows on television. Shrinking was in there. You and I have both seen that. I've never heard of some of these other things, Abbott Elementary, any of that sort of stuff. So, anyhow, I suppose there is a point to be made about being a former radio host and working now in the podcast space and independent media that applies to this. I suppose there is a better broadcaster would figure out a way to segue from the Emmys being on streaming to us being on a podcast Monday through Friday. A better broadcaster would be able to make that connection, but yours truly right now, working on his first cup of coffee on a Monday morning, I cannot build that bridge in real time. But suffice it to say, the world changes, and it used to be broadcast television and then cable television, and now these things, whether you think they're important or not, they are dominated by streaming. And it goes to show you whether it's Pablo Torre finds out and the continued journalism that he does with regards to the Clippers, or whether it's even something like this, which is just in its infancy stages. The world is changing, and you're going to want to adapt to it because, as we see, if you look back and you spend too much time, you're going to get left behind. So welcome aboard to our podcast here on a Monday, John. The Padres are off today.
Wait. You see what I'm doing here? You see what I'm doing? I'm landing the plane. You landed that plane, Darren. That was well done. You wrapped it up real quickly.
Okay. I mean, again, I know people are like, really? Like subscription stuff? I used to just listen to this 3 hours every day. You know, like the world is changing. The world is changing. That applies to us. This is by choice. This is something John and I are choosing to do. This is not something that we are forced into doing. So hopefully that all makes sense. It makes sense in my little brain. Padres are off today, on their way. They're in New York. They flew yesterday, took 3 out of 4 from the Colorado Rockies, which to me, John, was always the bare minimum of what would be acceptable. Padres have a 99.8% chance of going to the playoffs with 12 games remaining, according to Fangraphs. Interesting, Fangraphs has much different numbers than some of these other projection sites. The Padres are going to play the Mets starting tomorrow. Fangraphs has the Mets at 80% and the San Francisco Giants, the team, right behind them at 10%. Don't really know what to make of that. Don't really know what to expect of Padres and Mets, and we can save it for tomorrow. But taking 3 out of 4 and hitting some homers against the rotten Colorado Rockies team, like I said, I mean, probably the bare minimum for the team over the weekend, and back-to-back weekends having success against the Colorado Rockies, I think has at least, put the Padres in a position where maybe it's not, maybe it's not the most enjoyable. I mean, there were some enjoyable moments over the weekend. We still feel like these games, I think, are more of a relief than they are like a joyous emotion. But, listen, 12 games to go. Take it, move on, get ready for the Mets.
Yeah. I think I saw Kevin Acee had in the Padres Daily this morning that the Padres magic number is 6. So as long as if they go 6-6 the rest of the way, they make the playoffs. And I think they have a 3-game series against the White Sox and maybe a couple series against the Diamondbacks, who are not great. So, I mean, the playoffs seem very likely. At one point yesterday, I turned the game on and my wife noticed that it was like 9-0 or 7-0 Padres, and she's like, "Oh, that's really good." I was like, "Yeah, it's the Rockies." Like, I can't take anything from it. I'm excited. I'm very excited that Jackson Merrill is playing out of his mind right now. In his last 8 games, he has 4 home runs and an OPS over 1,200. I am excited that Fernando Tatis Jr., who last week we did this whole thing of like, we don't think Tatis is going to turn it on and we don't think Machado is going to turn it on, but we do have hope for Merrill. I'm starting to have hope for Tatis. I know a lot of this is the Rockies, and I don't know what to do with that. But in his last 8 games, he's got 2 home runs. He's got an OPS almost 900. He's doing pretty well. Side note, don't want to take us too far off this. Side note, Fernando Tatis Jr. might be having the best season of his career. Like, statistically might be having the best season of his career. This broke my brain this morning when I was reading AC, and he said that Tatis got his 30th stolen base, which is his career high. I was like, this is his career high in steals? I would imagine he had a season where he had like 60. And then I went this morning and I checked, and according to Baseball Reference, he's at 5.8 WAR. The highest he ever had was 2021 when we had 6.6 WAR. So he's got
Okay,
12
which
games.
season would you rather have right now?
I would rather have the 2021 season.
Okay.
I like all
Me
those
too.
home runs, but the fielding, the platinum glove level fielding in right field, and the walks are just things that weren't there in 2021. And those things are valuable. They have value. That's why they contribute to WAR. And it's gonna blow my mind if after this season that all year long we've been like, I don't know, this has been pretty disappointing. Like he got off to a hot start, but what has he done since then? If this ends up being like an almost 7 WAR season and the best statistical season of his career, advanced statistical season of his career, that would be crazy to me. So that's the thing that I'm keeping an eye on for the next couple weeks.
Well, I think part of what's contributed to that conversation is Fernando and his seemingly dissatisfied approach to this season.
It's a great
right?
point. Yeah.
I mean, whether it's something as simple as what I'm going to the All-Star game, I booked a trip. Like whether it was that moment where he didn't even consider for a single second that he was going to be an All-Star to the point where he planned a vacation. He's like, yeah, I stink. I got to get out of here. And then, here he is. He's off to the All-Star game.
He's going to be a
like
6 WAR player.
He's got his, I'm guessing he doesn't spend a lot of time on baseballreference.com,
Probably not.
although he has, I think, over the last, I know it sounded a little bit like a joke, but there was a little bit of truth to it, John. And I think you and I were on the same wavelength last week. That hug from Schilt, was more the metaphor of like embracing Fernando Tatis Jr. for what it is that he's doing here, that we can celebrate you even when you hit a sac fly. We all know, my guy, that you want to hit a nuke in that situation. But hitting the sac fly and being a good team player, especially the next day you go out there and you have that amazing catch and right to rob a home run, like you are still adding a lot of value to this team, even if it's not the way people had thought. This was not what people thought when they said, we're signing this guy into a long-term contract, and one day we're going to build him a statue. It wasn't because he was going to have really, really high WAR seasons because he was walking. It was because he was going to be hitting a ton of nukes. But, again, he's come out of it. I agree with you about Jackson Merrill. I don't know that we were saying that we don't have any faith in Manny and Tatis. I think we just said, I think I'm going to put my money on Jackson.
Yeah, I think that's right.
To really pop. And listen, maybe it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise to move him up in the order. I don't want to see anybody get hit in the face with a baseball like Luis Ariz did. But, if it gives the opportunity to get Jackson Merrill some more at-bats that he missed over the span of a regular season, then I'm all for it. Like, give him as many at-bats between now and over the remaining 12 as possible, because I want that guy cooking heading into the playoffs. So if there's that opportunity and it presented itself, well, I'm all for it. Let's now frame this as we got to get Jackson as many at-bats as possible, and he's doing some damage when he's in the batter's box. So we're just going to go with that in the top 3. Even when Luis comes back, it's okay. I'm not holding my breath on this, John. I'm just saying you can certainly make a valid case, not for reasons that we've discussed all season long, but for right now, well, yeah, this guy's hot. Let's get him as many at-bats as possible. Let's put him in that 2-hole, and let's see what happens over the remaining games of the regular season. Fair?
I almost guarantee Luis Ariz is batting second tomorrow. I almost guarantee Luis Ariz is batting second tomorrow.
You're probably right. I know. But a boy can dream.
A boy can dream. I want to read you a part of AC's Padres Daily this morning. It's not groundbreaking, but I want to read it to you because I don't know if you had the chance to. The subheadline of this, which I did not realize until right now, is "Fixed It." Quote, "It wasn't just that Tatis went 5 for 7 with a home run and walked twice in the past 2 games. It was that he did it after looking so bad on Friday. Tatis can be mercurial at the plate. This time stood out, though. Friday was just the third 4-strikeout game of his career, and it took 2 Rockies pitchers a total of 16 pitches to get those 4 strikeouts, so he was terrible." Back to the quote. "Tatis went to sleep after Friday's game, woke up Saturday, and got on the phone with his dad." Here's a Tatis quote. "I picked his brain. There was some good back and forth." Back to AC. "Tatis popped out on the first pitch he saw that night and then became almost impossible to get out for the next 2 days." What are we, like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with the information of every time Tatis is bad, he talks to his dad and then he's good. Yeah, what am I supposed to do with that?
I think it's a bad look, to be honest.
Me too.
I think it's a really, really bad look, and I will go back and I will say, just so people don't think that this is exclusively about Fernando, because I remember way back when Sean Burrows did this, and Dave Magadan was the hitting coach of the Padres, and Sean Burroughs was quoted as saying something about having to go to his dad, or he went to his dad, who was a former big league player. His name was Jeff Burroughs. And it showed up your pitching coach, and it does. I mean, not your pitching coach, your hitting coach.
Yeah.
It kind of does, even if it's not your intent, it just kind of does, to the point where these guys see these quotes, and you could imagine a coach going, "Hey, listen, you got a problem. Why don't you call up your dad then? Why don't you call up your dad? I'm going to spend my time working on these other guys." Because, that's where all the answers are. Apparently the answers aren't in here. The answers are over there. And that's what was said at the time about Sean Burroughs. Now, again, Sean Burroughs was a first-round draft pick. Didn't work out. Poor guy ended up in a terrible situation in his life, passed away, rest in peace. So I'm not just trying to dump on the guy. But it was the situation that reminds me very much of a player who, was a star caliber player. At least there was a lot of people who thought that Sean Burroughs was going to be a really, really good player, to the point where Billy Beane, the former general manager of the A's, said there are like two things that are certain in life. Coastal property and Del Mar and Sean Burroughs. Didn't work out. But he did say that he was struggling, and he was quoted, and I remember being around. I was pretty close with that coaching staff, and they're like, not great. Here, I suspect a lot of people won't really care, about Luis Rodriguez's feelings. They just care that Fernando Tatis Jr. went and had a successful weekend. But I'm just suggesting to you, I think it's. I just think that's the kind of thing you probably should just keep to yourself.
It keeps happening, though. This is like the fourth time this season where it's like, oh, he's slumping, oh, he's doing good. And then, like, you can tell someone asked him, like, so what'd you do to turn it around? I called my dad. I went and visited my dad. My dad came to town and we worked on my hitting. And, like, I get it. His dad has been working on Fernando Tatis Jr.'s swing since Fernando Tatis Jr. was a baby. I get it. The only person who knows his swing better than him is probably his dad. I get it. But, like, yeah, can we just have one time, just one, where the turnaround is not attributed to Fernando Tatis Sr.? Because I'm not even like, it's not even that I feel like it's a shot at the hitting coaching staff, although it is. It's just this thing of like, this is an outside force that you can't control. Like, what if Fernando Tatis Sr. gets hired by the Miami Marlins and he's like, sorry, I can't talk hitting with you anymore because you're part of the, is Junior just going to be bad forever? Like, they need to figure out a way for him to get out of these slumps without talking to his dad, I think. Or to your point, maybe just don't talk about it when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, and am I to believe that the only times that that these conversations happen, they result in success? Those are the only times that they ever talk about this? Or, are there a lot of conversations that happen, and he goes 0 for 4 with 4 punch outs the next day too? So, like, again, it's just sort of the framing of it all. I think it is, this isn't waving my finger at either the reporter or the actual moment, but I'm just guessing there's a little bit more to it. It's not as simple as, oh, okay, he talked to his dad. Like, yeah, I think they probably talk a lot. I think they probably do spend a lot of time on the phone, and I would think that, whatever recent moments of success he has had this year, there is no direct line to his phone log with Fernando Tatis Sr. But again, I just think it's the kind of thing it could end up making somebody. Yeah. We're on YouTube here. Somebody just said maybe he should talk to his dad when they're not playing the Rockies, when they're playing a better opponent other than the Rockies. That's like when you have team meetings. Like, you always have a team meeting when you have your ace going the next day. Or,
Right.
There was always team meetings. I remember it seemed like there was always team meetings before Jake Peavy pitched. Because you're like, wow, look at these guys. They really responded to that. Or when you're facing some shitty opponent. So, like, there is a convenience to it, but whatever. If it gets him back to where he was and gets him back resembling the Fernando that everybody so adored, then I'm all for it. Whatever it takes. All hands on deck, John.
Right.
All hands on deck.
Exactly. But also,
it's either that or we're going to credit the facial hair. So,
look,
pick your storyline when it comes to Major League Baseball.
I love some playoff facial hair. It's actually like one of the few things that gets me into hockey during the playoffs. It's just like playoff beards. I love a good playoff beard. I also found it very funny that Manny Machado is like 38 years old and he was like, I can't grow facial hair. Don't include me in on this. But yes,
38.
How old is he?
He's like
33?
30.
Is he like 30? He's been around forever.
He's been around forever.
He seems his body's falling apart. I thought he was decrepit.
I know, right? Like talk about, we went into the weekend like, when are they going to give Manny an off day? Homers on Friday, homers on Saturday, and then they give him off on Sunday.
He's going to come back a monster. It's going to be awesome.
Just can't win. He is 33. I undersold it. You overshot it.
Yeah. Well, I adjusted after the fact, but yeah.
But he's played a lot of ball, man. That body might be a little bit older than 33.
Speaking of, this can probably be 30 seconds because I know you didn't really get a chance to watch it. But how much did you check in on the Canelo fight? And did that look to you like a man past his prime, or is Crawford just that good?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch this. So I had the SDFC game on Saturday, and by the time I got home, we had some friends that went to the game, so we went out with them for a bit afterwards. I'm gonna go back and watch it. A, because I do want to watch the fight and to be able to talk about it. But B, I also want to find out how Netflix did as a live broadcast partner. How did they do?
I have some takes.
Okay. I was asking friends of mine yesterday when we were watching Barcelona, friends who were big fight fans. Not an easy thing to say. And there was an element of A, Crawford was really good, and Crawford has proven that he's really good. B, maybe $150 million. You know, what's that phrase? It's tough to get out of bed every day when you're sleeping in silk pajamas. You know, that maybe there's a little bit of that with Canelo as well. He got paid an awful lot of money for this fight. And this is like the 70th, 71st boxing match of his career. You know, the money was too good to turn down. Maybe there was an element of, whatever, I got paid. You know, but every clip that I saw, like it looked like he was just being bossed around the ring. So I will defer to you about that one. I do want to go back and watch it again because of the fight, but also because I want to see how Netflix did.
I'll give you a take on each. My take on the fight is that Canelo looked a little old, a little beaten up, but I don't think that's why he lost. I think he lost because Crawford, a lefty, is very comfortable boxing against righties. I don't think Canelo, a righty, is very comfortable boxing against lefties because most boxers are righties. So Crawford has boxed against righties most of his life, if not all of his life. And Canelo boxes against lefties every now and then. I'm sure he trained against him and whatever, but it's different. There was a point in which Canelo got inside and he threw a punch on Crawford and they went head to head, like their heads bounced off each other. And the commentators were just like, sometimes that happens when you have a lefty battling a righty. Like, you just have to be aware of that type of stuff. And it was just like little things like that just Canelo looked like he was just off a little bit. And by off a little bit, I mean, like, the Crawford just wasn't where he was expecting him to be. And I think a lot of that was the southpaw nature of it. I thought the Netflix broadcast was great. I had no buffering issues. I did get texts from a couple friends who said that they were having buffering issues. I had none. That being said, if you go back and watch this, pay attention to Max Kellerman. I used to love Max Kellerman as a boxing analyst. Not only was he awful the whole night, there was something just seemed wrong with him. And like, after the fight, they showed him after the fight because he's interviewing the boxers. His eyes were like big and welled up and red, like he had been crying, and his hands were shaking.
Max Kellerman.
Like, just go watch the post-fight interview with Canelo, and like, he can't keep the mic steady because his hands are shaking and he looks like he's been crying. I've seen a lot of people who are like, it's a man who just bet his whole house and lost it. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like, Max Kellerman has a lot of money and he's a smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something going on there. There was something weird. Yeah, and at one point...
I must admit, I haven't really thought about Max Kellerman in years.
Yeah. At some point, he tried to quote some old boxer, and the quote that he pulled out was, "You have to bring ass to get ass."
Hey, now.
And you could tell that, like, no one on the broadcast knew what the hell he was talking about. And, like, all of social media was like, what is this? Why is he just yelling random phrases that don't make any sense? Like, he was off his game in a very serious way.
Yeah, and
But
that's a big moment too because Netflix is this is new for a lot of people, and even if
yeah,
you're not a fight fan, people were tuning into Netflix just because they want to see how they're going to handle future NFL broadcasts and other
yeah.
broadcasts that Netflix have been associated with. So it's not so much that people were there just because they want to hear the commentary from Max Kellerman. Who else was on this call? Do you know any of the names?
I
Did they just
don't
recycle a lot of the people from old boxing? Like there's no Jim Lampley here, I'm guessing, but
know.
who's
There
doing play
was.
by play?
I
Who's
feel
doing
like
the commentary?
I feel like Jim Gray was around at some point.
Jim Gray.
Yeah. Mario Lopez was doing like
What?
the studio hosting stuff, like the pre-fight, post-fight, like at the desk thing.
I gotta watch this.
Along with like I think Antonio Tarver was with him.
Huh.
It was you could tell it was a mishmash of like people who are understand boxing but aren't really working right now. But I thought the broadcast was actually really good.
Okay.
I thought they did an okay job with it, all in all.
Okay. Yeah, like I would like to watch this. I mean, it was 10 rounds and it went and it was unanimous decision. And did you feel at the end of it? Did you feel like when the bell rang for the final time in the 10th, were you like, yeah, this is all Crawford here? Like there was no suspense to it. There was no like, well, maybe. Nobody was going, okay, Jim, I've got this one. 5 rounds apiece. There was none of that stuff happening.
I think when the final bell rang, and I believe it was Kellerman, yelled out, I don't care what the judges are going to say. We all saw with our eyes. Terrence Crawford clearly won this fight.
Yeah.
And he wasn't wrong. I mean, like through the first 5 rounds, it was pretty close, but Crawford just kept winning round after round after round after that. If they had picked Canelo, it would have been an outrage.
I love boxing too because boxing is the only sport where at the end of it you have to actually qualify your comment like that and say I don't care what the judges say.
Right.
Just in case something completely batshit crazy happens here, I don't care what they say. I'm going to say first that this one was Terrence Crawford. Yeah, I would like to watch it, and I guess they got 70,000 plus people inside of the Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. So
Crowd was good for a while until the fight got boring, but crowd was really good for the first few rounds.
it was boring towards the end.
Yeah, it got to the point where Canelo was he knew he was so far behind in the last like 3 rounds that he had to throw knockout punches, but Crawford was willing to like take advantage of that. So every time Canelo would like wind up, Crawford would sneak in, hit him in the face. So there was a lot of like, is Canelo ever going to get off the big punch? No. And so it ended up being a little, by the end, it got a little predictable and a little sad because you just knew like Canelo's not going to get this punch, or if he did, it was going to be a very exciting moment, but it never happened. And Crawford was just working him over.
I wonder what this does for Canelo's taco shop on Broadway in Chula Vista. That's the real story there. I also saw that Ricky Hatton, former boxer Ricky Hatton, died over the weekend. He was a young man.
Did he
I think
really?
in his 40s.
I was going to say, he's not that old.
Yeah, I just read that almost as an adjacent story to the fight itself. And I would say, like, I was at the Ricky Hatton.
46.
How old?
He's 46.
Yeah, it's a young person.
Whew.
I was at a couple of Ricky Hatton fights in the 2000s, in the aughts. One against Floyd Mayweather that I would tell you, John, I would put on a list. If you were to say rattle off the top 5 sports experiences of your life, and I've been very lucky. I've been to Super Bowls, World Series, NBA Finals, championship game, Champions League match. I've been very, very fortunate in my career. I would put, not because it was a great fight. Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Ricky Hatton was not a great fight.
None of the Mayweather fights were great.
But it was a great event. It was a
Where was
great
it?
event. It was in Vegas. I think it was MGM.
Okay.
And it was just the English fans that flew over that I can still hear them singing. There's only one Ricky Hatton, hopping along, singing along, walking in a Hatton wonderland. It was amazing. Like, I've seen better fights out there. I saw Mayweather and Pacquiao. I've seen Pacquiao, Ricky Hatton. We used to go a lot. It used to be great. HBO used to fly out a bunch of different radio stations.
Right.
Put us in some ballroom in the MGM. It was an amazing connection that we had to get out there and to go to some of these fights. Boxing just isn't in the same place at all. But I saw that. I was like, God, what a night. And just hanging out in Vegas for 3 days with a bunch of English fans and hearing some of these stories that they told about how their plane ran out of booze before they even, got halfway across the Atlantic was something else. Remember hanging out really, really late, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning with the former boxer, former boxing reporter, Bert Sugar. Just a
Birch
great time.
sugar.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember that. That was such, like I said, it would be a top 5 sporting event for me all time. So I did see that, and I did at least want to make mention of it. Couple things here as we're going live. For those that are watching, let me just apologize. Yes, I am eating my breakfast while I am doing the show because we just had a little bit of a traffic jam for me this morning when it comes to Section 1904. I'm also part of another podcast called Behind the Flow, which is about San Diego Football Club, which we'll talk about here momentarily. And we're trying to narrow down a time to record that. So we're bouncing a little bit back and forth on it. So I'm coffee and breakfast. I could probably turn my camera off when I'm trying to eat my strawberries with my yogurt and my granola on it, but my apologies for that. But that's just what happened. Is what's happening. I do have a little extra time. I don't know if you got my text, John, but I do have a little bit of extra time here. So we thought we'd have to be shut down by 10 a.m. Pacific, but I have a little bit longer to go, which is good. And part of this is because working with Adrian Garcia Marquez. He's the Charger Spanish language broadcaster there in Vegas. So, he's trying to get situated so we can get up and running for the Behind the Flow podcast. And we have an interview with Chucky Lozano. So we have all sorts of things happening.
The NFL, it's week 2, which apparently is reason enough for them there's like a double-decker Monday Night Football game tonight, I think.
I know, I saw that. And I still don't have a way to get out of my hole when it comes to fantasy tonight, even though there's 2 games. I still don't have I'm going to be, I'm in trouble.
You liked your team a lot. I liked your team. Yeah.
I know, but I'm in trouble. But my guys, I mean, wrong players, bad coaching. Coach should be fired. Team might be for sale. Team could be for sale. I'm not so sure. Maybe we need what's happening with the Indianapolis Colts, where we need a better coach or we need a better owner to actually be a more active participant in the play calling. Have you seen this? Jim Irsay's daughter, who's down there on the field with the headset on?
No, I haven't. Did you see how the Colts won that game yesterday?
I think so.
They kicked a field goal with 1 second left and missed it. They were down 2.
Yeah.
And there was a penalty on a Broncos player, so they got to redo it. I think it was a 60-yard field goal, and then they got to redo it at a 45-yard field goal. Hit it, carried the kicker off on the team's shoulders, like he was.
That's my kicker.
There you go. So you
didn't do enough for me though.
But no, I did not see that Jim Irsay's daughter is down on the sidelines with a headset like she's Jerry Jones in 1991. But go, whatever her name is.
And she's got a fat chain on too. Yeah, you should look into that when we're done today. I think you would be interested in some of the details on that. And I would say this, it is Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit of spice for a Monday night game between the Raiders and the Chargers, right? Like there is a little bit of that because of those 2 coaches. Like they're going back and forth again. And they did this when it was USC and Stanford. And they did this when it was the Niners and the Seahawks. And now it's the Chargers. These guys can't quit one another, can they?
2 guys that love to be confident and talk shit. Yeah.
Yeah, they do not like one another. So anyhow. We'll be recording this here in a little bit. So SDFC loses over the weekend. Was there Saturday night. Soccer's such a stupid sport sometimes. It really is. I thought Joe Lowery, we've interviewed Joe Lowery from backheel.com. I thought he had a good write-up on this today. He does his winners and losers column for backheel.com. And loser, justice. Allow me, if you would, to present some numbers from a game that was played on Saturday between Team A and Team B. After I run through the numbers, your job is to tell me which team won the game. Team A, 2.5 expected goals, 28 shots, 6 good or great chances, 59 passes into the final third, 20 passes into the opposition box. Team B, 0.8 XG, 6 shots, 2 chances, 13 passes into the final third, 7 passes into the opposition's box. Team A should have won this game statistically, but Team B won it. Team B was Minnesota United. Team A was San Diego Football Club. He does sum it up. Did Minnesota United's own players enjoy that brutal game they played on Saturday? Almost certainly not. Was soccer justice done in San Diego? Not one bit. Is that part of what makes the sport so maddeningly delightful? You bet. Long live variance. Yeah, I mean, it was a weird one. It was a
Can
weird
I?
one on Saturday night. Scoreless into the break. SDFC had all the initiative, outshooting them 12-0, I think, or maybe it was 12-1. I have the stats around here somewhere. And both coaches probably went in and were like, yeah, we're pretty happy with this. It's scoreless at the break. And then three substitutes for Minnesota United scored 3 goals from the 74th minute into the 77th minute and then into stoppage time, and a very, very late goal for SDFC. Put a little bit of lipstick on it, but it was Minnesota United. They have a very unique style. It's very frustrating. It's beautiful if you're into that brand of soccer. Not everybody is, but I give them credit. They know who they are. They have an identity, and it worked for them on Saturday night.
I feel like we did a very good job of previewing this game on Friday. And if I can pay you a compliment, I did what you recommended on Try This, what I always do when the game is at Snapdragon Stadium. I switched the radio, I switched my TV broadcast to include the radio call so I could hear you and Adrian. And from about 40 minutes on, it was a bit like watching someone give play-by-play of a plane crash from inside the plane. Like, you started at about 40 minutes going like, this is what Minnesota does, man. Like, yeah, we're dominating this game, but it's 0-0. And if they score one, like they're just gonna shut down that goal. And this is just what they do. And this is why they win so many games. And you were like, the possession doesn't matter. They're one of the leading goal scoring teams in the league, despite the fact they never have the ball. You were like, this is just what they do. And then it was like every 10 minutes, you would just like kind of come back to the realization of like, this is just what they do. They do this every week. Like this, no one should be surprised. And you started, I think it was at halftime, you started bringing out the XG. And you're like, yeah, like the SDFC's XG is like 1.5 and Minnesota's was like 0.07.
Yeah.
And you're like, doesn't matter. This is what Minnesota does. This is how they win so many games. This is how they play. And then at the end, you were right. That's just like my notes over here. My first note says Minnesota did what Minnesota does. So that was that was an entertaining thing, and thank you for I guess kind of letting me know during the game as a viewer and a listener. Like, it's not unexpected. It's weird, but that's just how Minnesota plays, because they are so comfortable being on defense, like freakishly comfortable being on defense, partially because their keeper is outstanding.
Amazing.
Like,
What a night for Dane St. Clair. He's Canada's #1. He was on international duty. He made, I think, 11, 12 saves. Some of these sites have different numbers, so I don't know what it is officially, but he was the man of the match by far. I mean, he just made so many game-changing saves in the first half. I always felt like the first goal was going to be the key in this one.
And it was.
And, because goals change games, as they say. And
Mhm.
it's not that you get, they have a ridiculous record. I'm trying to see if I have it in front of me. Minnesota United came into the match 13 wins, 1 loss, and 4 draws when scoring first in 2025. 13, 1, and 4. So they've only lost 1 time in the, what would that be? 18 times that they took a lead in a match. They've only lost 1 time, and that was to San Diego. So it's not like you didn't tuck that away in the back of your mind, because even though they didn't score, that was an own goal in Minnesota. They had the lead in the match.
That was a different keeper.
Different keeper, right? It was a rookie keeper making his Major League Soccer debut. So you had that in the back of your mind. But the odds of you falling behind against the team again with their starting goalkeeper and their international players, not impossible, but it was unlikely. And it just felt like the first goal. And that's why I think the second goal happened 3 minutes later, because I think SDFC understood, like, we just gave that up. Like, for fuck's sake, like we've done everything right in this match, except put the ball in the net. We've completely smothered them in the first half, and now we're trailing. Now we're trailing at home against this team with 25 minutes or not even 16 minutes left. Like, how did this happen? How did this happen to us? And then another substitute scores the second goal, and I think it was a direct result of the first one. And then the third one was just a joke, but I suppose turnabout was fair play since Anders Dreyer scored from the halfway circle in the first match. It was up to them. I mean, people don't like this brand of soccer, John, and I understand it. I mean, to me, it is not parking the bus. They do score a lot of goals. They also had a player, you brought him up on Friday. His name is Tani Oluwaseyi, who they just sold to Villarreal. I know of this player because this player went to my alma mater. He went to St. John's.
Oh, he's a Johnny.
He's a Johnny, and he was drafted in the first round, and they just sold him for 10 figures, right? So like this could be like a 10, $11 million deal depending on how he performs for Villarreal in Spain. But the idea that Minnesota United is just this like, they don't care about possession, and SDFC literally has twice as many completed passes in 2025 as Minnesota United. But it's not like Jose Mourinho just sitting back parking the bus kind of stuff. They've built an attacking player that they just sold for 10, $11 million. And they
Yeah.
have another guy who's a designated player named Kelvin Yaboa. They're not selling their defensive guys, they're selling offensive guys. And Yaboa didn't score in this one, but he is a designated player. And Pereira is another one of their designated players. So, these are the players who are more on the attacking side than it is on the defensive side. But it is their identity and their personality. And that's what makes them so hard. I appreciate who they are because I don't think that they just take the life and joy out of the game like a lot of these defensive coaches do. Like sometimes I just think, these other teams, they just it's not what's in the best interest of the game. And you can say, well, they win a bunch and all that. Yeah, but I don't put Minnesota in that category. They do want to score. They just want to score on set pieces and on counterattacks. And of course, the first goal comes on its only fucking corner kick of the whole game.
Yeah.
And like that was it. They have more set piece goals than anybody in Major League Soccer. So for them to score that first one on a set piece, you're like, yeah, of course.
Of
Of
course.
course they did.
Yep.
So, I don't view it as unders. He had great chances, like he did. He had great chances, but Dane St. Clair was just better. And I just think it's one that was easier to move on from than some of the other games that we've seen at Snapdragon Stadium,
Hmm.
because I do think that Minnesota's good, and it will not surprise me at all if these two teams see each other again somewhere down the road in the MLS playoffs. But that's not for today. There's still 4 to go, and SDFC's back on the road against Atlanta in league play coming up on Saturday. Tomorrow night, they get Tijuana at Snapdragon Stadium. So there's going to be this friendly. The Baja Cup is Tuesday night. So a quick turnaround for us,
Hmm.
as we'll have a pregame show at 6:30, and then the match will be on AM 760 and iHeart. I don't know if there's television for this one. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But it'll be on at 7 o'clock on AM 760 in the iHeart app. I'll get back to you on the TV. I hadn't really thought about it until this very moment. But, again, still on top of the Western Conference standings.
Hmm.
And you know who this was a big weekend for? Was Vancouver. Because Vancouver absolutely pulled Philadelphia's pants down. I think they won that game 7-0, and they have 2 games in
Whoa.
hand. So, they not only can make a run at the Western Conference, but they now can make a real run at the Supporter Shield. Now, they got to play a couple of extra games in a condensed amount of time because they were involved in CONCACAF Champions Cup and some other tournaments earlier this year. But they do have 2 games in hand, but they are back in play in the Western Conference. And if they win out, which I don't think they will, they have difficult games. Seattle's going to be a tricky game for them. But if they win out, like there's nothing anybody can do to stop them. So, this was a true 6-pointer, as we said on Friday. And I think credit Minnesota. It was frustrating. I get it. It was frustrating to watch it. You just sort of said all of these chances in the first half and you didn't convert any of them. Feels like the kind of thing that's going to get stuck in the back of your mind, when you fall behind by a goal late in the second half. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So, it's just the way the nature of the sport is sometimes. And it's frustrating, but I don't respect some of these teams that have come into Snapdragon Stadium and just said, hey, we're not playing. St. Louis was the first to do it in the
I was
first ever
about to
game.
say, freaking
No
St.
respect
Louis.
for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. That's why that coach and that sporting director are out of jobs. Part of it, at least. But, for Minnesota, I hate to admit it, but I kind of dig it. I kind of like that they're just like, hey, like, you guys all want to do all this fancy stuff. Everybody around the league wants to play it out of the back and have these perfect little triangles up and down the field. Well, that ain't us. That's not us. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to do that at all. And, you have to give them their credit because they've been successful with it. Don't you think?
They're very, very dangerous and very, very successful. Couple things. One, I thought SDFC, the players, and part of this was Minnesota's doing, but I'm sure part of it was all the international travel and minutes and stuff like that. SDFC looked pretty tired towards the end of
Mm.
that match. I'm going to be curious to see who plays and what kind of minutes they get against Tijuana. I imagine this Baja Cup game is probably less important today than it was 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, we have to make sure we're right for the rest of this run. If we're going to go
Mm-hmm.
after Supporter Shield, we can't have Chucky playing 90 minutes of hardball
No,
against Cholos on Tuesday.
no. As a matter of fact, and Cholo's probably the same approach. They played last night. So yeah, they
Yeah.
played at
So
6:00 last night.
right.
So
So
I'm guessing
end of
48
the
hours
bench.
later, they're probably not going to roll out an A squad.
Yeah, you're gonna see the end of the bench, which is fine. Two things, if I can be an asshole for a minute. SDFC could have won this game if a couple things went their way. But the other two ways that they could have won the game. One, there was a moment, I think it was about 42, 43 minutes in, and you identified it. No one, although no one has any idea what happened, but the camera cut to St. Clair and he's like on the ground grabbing at his legs. And you start yelling like, this is the chance. This is the chance if St. Clair's out of this game. They're a much different team. And then he just gets up and he's fine. It was probably a cramp or something. But there was a moment there where I was like, oh, if we can get this guy out, SDFC's got a real chance. The other one, and this is more of me being a jerk about it. I thought Pellegrino was fine. I thought he was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
But I don't think he was doing a good job of getting himself in the right position. He was not finishing probably the way that he wanted to finish. And it made me think that the two guys that I think are maybe the best finishers on SDFC, the guys that like if you hit them with a cross in front of the net, they're gonna head it in, they're gonna kick it in, they're gonna find a way. Milan Olaski, not on the team anymore, and Marcus Ingvartson, who was hurt for this one. And like Pellegrino was essentially playing the spot that those guys would have played. And I was just going like, ugh. There's like, I saw a shot from the game. Maybe it was even like on TV, and there was a lot of Milan Olaski jerseys in the stands from this shot. And I was like, oh, that's awkward. And then I was like watching the game going like, there's almost a Milan Olaski sized hole on this front line. And then I was like, it's Marcus Ingvartson sized hole really that Olaski filled for a little while. That I don't know, maybe Pellegrino can be that. This was his first like start, right? With
First start,
SDFC.
yeah.
And it seemed like every time he got in the right position and he got the right ball, he hit it right into like St. Clair's chest with no force.
Yeah.
And that was tough. But
I will say though, that is an upgrade from some of the other players not named Milan Olaski to play in that spot.
Yes.
Because other guys
yes.
haven't even gotten to that point.
Correct.
And I don't think, that's me saying, well, hey, I have a phrase in my mind that I don't want to use, but one of them is like in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, I guess. That's probably not right. But when you've gone through and you've cycled through other players in that position and they haven't had they didn't get the ball on target. I will deal with a guy who can get the ball on target because I think the more he does that in Pellegrino, and I looked up, I spent a little bit of time. I had no idea he was going to start the game. I thought it was going to be Valakari, to be honest. But I spent a little bit of time. I was like, who is this guy? I got to figure out who this guy is. This is a guy who, and I don't know anything about the Norwegian league, but he is a 2-time Norwegian league top level Golden Boot winner. So, he's led the Norwegian. He scored 100 career goals. He knows how to get the ball in the net. He's not what he was. He's in his 30s. He's here just for a handful of games. So, I don't think anything is, you're not saying, hey, we need this guy. Like we need to do something. But, in terms of some of the other guys that have been given a lot of opportunities who don't seem to get the ball on target very often, I think this is a guy who, I can live with that for a second one. There were lots of guys that put the ball on target and didn't get it home, including our best goal scorer, which is Anders. So, I can live with it, though. I thought it was good enough that I would like to see it again. And I also think it's really good that Corey Baird was healthy enough to come back because when he went hopping off against Portland, I thought that was it for his season. I thought that was it. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see that he was off the injury list and that he was able to come into the game late as it was. And he had a run at goal too. He put it just wide late in the second half, but you do. I don't know what's going on with Marcus. I mean, it feels like it's something different than what's taken him out of 23 now, maybe 24 different games. But I can live with a guy who can get the ball on target because I think a guy that scored as many goals as he has in his career, like that will turn into some level of productivity at some point.
I actually was thinking about this, and I think you made this point on the radio. I think the reason he got the start was because they thought that Godoy had too many miles on him from the international
Yeah,
window.
played a lot.
And so I think next weekend, assuming the same group with the same health, I think Godoy is in the starting lineup and that's Valakari in the front. And so I think this was, I mean, I hate to call it this, I don't know, but it felt a little bit like a missed opportunity for Pellegrino. And I would almost be surprised to see him starting in that same spot again sometime in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I thought it was good drama, between the two sides. I mean, it's just two good teams that do it
Two good
completely
teams
different.
playing well, yeah.
And two young coaches who are just absolutely resolute in their opinion that this is the way the sport should be played.
I know.
I mean, I don't know enough about Eric Ramsey to know if he's, everywhere he goes in life, if he's like, yes, I'm playing 5-4-1. That's the way I'm going to go about my business. And we're going to score on set pieces. I don't know if that's going to be him throughout his entire career, but it seems like he's going to have a career. And Minnesota, Minnesota has identified this as a big year for them. 15 wins now equals their all-time franchise high. They've been around since 2017. So that was their 15th win. That's as many as anybody's ever had in Minnesota. Number one. Number two, they're also competing in Open Cup on Wednesday, and they're hosting Austin. So I kind of like their chances there. They're in the mix. They're in the mix. They're not a team that I think I would want to see, somewhere in the playoffs just because of this style. Like, I just don't think I would want to see it, man. Because once they get a lead on you, too, if they get a lead on you, it's like, I think I used the line. It's like you're wrestling with a boa constrictor. They just squeeze the fucking life out of you, man. Like it's, and it is, I know there's been success there. They can be beaten, but those were circumstances that were a lot different than they were on Saturday night. So that's why you saw early on, like, God, I'm sure that Mikey went in and was like, great job. We're doing well. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah.
But when you have that many chances and you feel like that goalkeeper is going to just stop everything, you're like, are we going to get through? Like, are we going to break through? And then when you go down, you're like, oh, man, how did this happen? Why are we trailing in this game? I don't understand it.
The boa constrictor metaphor, which I think you used during the game too, is a very good one. I didn't watch any of this Wave game, but it seems like
they can't score.
It seems like the Waves issue is similar to issues that SDFC had earlier this season, especially when Chucky was out, which is they can possess the ball, they can get the ball near the goal, they just don't have anyone who can kick it into the goal. And they won on possession, they had more shots. They just didn't matter. 2-0. Wave go down again, which is unfortunate.
It is now because it's not just the losing. It's like I think it's 3 or 4 straight where they haven't scored. Right?
I know. They're really struggling.
Yeah. I thought the field held up pretty well for what it's worth. I thought there were a couple of patches. I thought maybe Anders stepped in a patch where he was behind the defenders. That's another thing too. Like Minnesota does want to play everything in front of them, and SDFC did get behind them a couple of times. So, but again, none of this really matters. None of this really matters unless you score. It might make you feel better, and soccer is a variant sport, and it is low scoring. So one or two things dramatically change. You can't hit a 3-run homer here, and it happens. But again, I thought, like, objectively, I was like, man, I just saw a great goalkeeping performance from Dane St. Clair. That guy did everything. I think in hockey we would say he stood on his head, John.
I almost wrote that in my post-game write-up on section1904.com. I almost wrote that he stood on his head. Then I was like, I think that's more of a hockey term than anything else. But yeah, it was going to be hard to get one in against him, which is funny because I feel like there was one like really early in the game, like 2 minutes into the game, that rolled past one of the posts that if it was a little bit to the right, it would have gotten in. But yeah, after that, anything that was anywhere near the box, he was swatting away.
He was really good. All right. Anything else as we wrap up?
I don't
off
think
day
so.
pods. So
Yeah, we don't need to talk about UCLA firing Deshaun Foster. That's news for me, but not anyone else.
think of how much worse it would have been for UCLA if they had allowed those pesky reporters in the practice to interview players who could have been giving away the game plan. John, things could have been way worse.
Way worse. So I'm sure the media will be thrilled to hear that he's gone and maybe that they're allowed to go back to practices. Also, the WNBA playoffs, I was like trying to watch bits and pieces of around football yesterday. Every one of these games was a blowout in game one. So I hope that gets more competitive. It was not a very competitive first day of the WNBA playoffs.
Did you see the Washington State? Since San Diego State played Washington State
And lost.
and lost convincingly, and we said,
That's
well, we're
why
not
he's
sure exactly how good Washington State is. Washington State lost to North Texas 59-10. This game was 59-3 at one point. Maybe North Texas is better than I realized.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for NT, Darren.
They're 3-0. That's a beatdown. Maybe the Aztecs just wore Washington State out. I don't know.
Yeah, Washington State scored. They beat San Diego State 36-13, and then lost 59-10.
Maybe
Ugh.
they're not a good road team. That certainly feels like it can be added to the conversation. So
Still first in the Pac-12, Darren. Still first in the Pac-12.
all right, you and I are done with the Gambler, the Dallas Cowboys documentary. I watched the final episode last night. So let's find time to talk about that on Tuesday.
Please, yeah.
I loved this so much. I wish
know.
there were more episodes.
It's-
That's
I
how
was-
much I love this.
I was thinking the same thing. I was sad when it was over.
Yeah, I mean, it was so good. The final two episodes, just how dramatically and cinematically shot it was when they would literally turn the lights off on one player after another when their careers were over was just so brilliantly done.
And I don't know if you remember, but in episode 1, when they were introducing all the characters, they would like zoom in and they would turn the light on, and then when their career would end, it's like the light would turn off and they'd zoom out, and it was very thematic, and I like that. We can get into it tomorrow.
Something John and I forgot about was of all the crazy things that happened with the Dallas Cowboys from the late 80s to the mid 90s, a hitman was going after Michael Irvin. Like, I had completely forgotten that story.
Not just
100%. And
A
like they
cop.
went in deep on it.
A cop was arrested in a murder for hire plot against Michael Irvin because he was dating the stripper that Michael Irvin was sleeping with, and he was so furious at him, and then they're like, wow, he got arrested, he got put in jail for years, and they're like, yeah, he came really close to murdering Michael Irvin. Okay, on to the next game. Like it was. It was oddly like
Crazy.
even swept under the rug in the documentary, and both of us were just like, what? Wait, what? Hold on, what?
What a great job. I don't know. Some will say, hey, they put a shine on Jerry and all that. I mean, Jerry is, I mean, he's in the Business Hall of Fame for what he did. I forgot who said it late. We'll save it for tomorrow.
We'll save it for tomorrow.
I don't want to come across like I'm sitting here, shining Jerry's shoes, but in terms of what he set out to do and changing the landscape of the NFL, like
He did it.
he did it. He absolutely did do it. And you could tell too by the end of it, we want to chronicle this because Jerry doesn't have a lot of time left. You could sort of see at the end, even when they were interviewing some of his family members,
Yeah,
like
even his
Stephen
kids,
Jones,
even his
they
wife.
started, every single one of them started tearing up when they talked about how much time Jerry has left. And I love the line. I said we were going to talk about it. We shouldn't. But I love the line where he's like, I'm embarrassed. Like, I would write a number down on a piece of paper right now, what I would pay to win another Super Bowl, and I'm embarrassed by it. But that's
Remember
what
he
I'd be
said-
willing to do.
Remember what he said after that? He goes, "There goes the kid's inheritance."
Yep.
He's a hell of a storyteller.
It is. He's a great, great storyteller, too. Even his last line of the movie was like, I don't really know what I was doing with this documentary. I don't really know what the purpose of this was. Like, why did I even agree to do this? Other than, this was one hell of a fucking ride.
Yeah.
Literally what he says, like the last things that he says. Because they ask him, like, what did you get out of this documentary? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, really.
I love that it
don't.
ended on that.
He's like, but it was a hell of a ride. That's for sure. All right. Thank you, everybody. Section1904.com. That's where you can find out all the information. If you're just checking us out here on the Monday weekend recap, it's always free. It's always unlocked. Share it with other people. If you wouldn't mind, you'd be doing us a huge favor. The more people that we can bring to our community, to our section, the better off we're going to be. I love what we're doing on our Discord channel here. I see a lot of people interacting. They're talking about traveling and food and all sorts of stuff. So it is really, really great. And, again, the world in which we're living in at times can be a bit bleak, but, I do think that there's a lot to like about what it is that we're cultivating here with Section 1904. So thank you, John. Thank you, everybody else. We'll see you tomorrow.